Hello and welcome to FPL Bandwagons Gameweek 5 with your host Mark Jobling. I'm starting to think that I'm definitely not the right person to host this at all because I am 2 millionth in the world, just wildcarded last week, got a measly 34 points, including bench and Capu yet again. I've had him from day one. Every single point of his has been on the bench. And also the pre-wildcard team would have actually outscored this one thanks to Firmino. So no, I'm probably the wrong guy to host this. Nevertheless, humour me. I'm going to give you 3 bandwagons this week that people have. Basically, these players have amassed a lot of transfers in, and I want to tell you whether, in my opinion, they're worth jumping on or not. What's happened this week? Well, Lukaku, I guess, grabbed the headlines late on with his hat-trick at Sunderland, and Aguero got his own hat-trick in midweek, halfway through his Premier League suspension. He scored 3 for Man City against Mönchengladbach on Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday, because Tuesday was rainy, of course. And it was a frustrating week. I think in fantasy league terms it was frustrating. I think it was quite low scoring. Blanks for a lot of the big hitters: Hazard, Sanchez, Ozil. Of course, I have all 3 of those. Although on a personal level, Baines kept a clean sheet, Ibra scored, and Benteke scored. But 34 points, man, it's shocking. What you need to remember this week is that the deadline is Friday evening because it's the second Friday night kickoff of the season as Liverpool travel to Stamford Bridge. So any last minute transfers, make sure that they are in before that deadline. What else have we had? We've had the Man Derby, of course. And Aguero-less Man City still went to Old Trafford and beat Man United. And I think to the surprise of the press, it wasn't actually Guardiola versus Mourinho. There were 11 players on either side kicking the ball. How about that? Spurs showed up, 4-0 hammering of Stoke, and that has Stoke bottom of the league and conceding goals for fun. This is not like them. They travel to Crystal Palace, which is a very winnable game for them. It's quite tough to call, actually. And I guess the other thing that happened this weekend is that Liverpool's attackers once again rotated themselves on the carousel. This time it was Firmino's turn to score big as they demolished the champions Leicester City. Has to be Michail Antonio from West Ham, and I would say get on this bandwagon, of course. I mean, he scored twice more last week against Watford before West Ham collapsed. Both goals set up by Payet, so that was a good combo. I, of course, went with Lanzini as West Ham coverage. There's a pattern here, but he's been freed from playing at right back with the signing of Arbeloa, and like his ridiculously good form is impossible to ignore. David Gold's already said on Twitter that right wing is where Antonio stays, but there are always, especially in the long term, there'll be concerns over his game time because they also have Feghouli on the right and they have Gokantore on the right, whereas Lanzini and Payet are a little bit more secure in their game time. But Antonio is impossible to drop right now. He made the England squad recently, although he didn't play. He scored 4 goals in the league, all of them headers. And he has good fixtures coming up. So he has good fixtures. He's definitely playing short term. I'd say in the short term he's essential as it is. He's already got up to 7.2 million though, or probably, if he hasn't yet, he's just about to. But I would say this is an easy one. This is yes. Kyle Walker is getting a lot of momentum. He's already risen to 5.7 million. Because he's the cheapest route into a Spurs defence that kept 13 clean sheets last season. They kept one against Crystal Palace, they've kept one against Stoke now, so they've got 2 clean sheets and he's got 2 assists and 5 bonus points, so the logic is pretty sound. But I would still say, even though he's the top scoring defender, I would not get on this bandwagon, especially if you've already missed his price rises. It's quite pricey, and we just don't know how Spurs are going to be affected by the Champions League. They, of course, lost to Monaco midweek, and they've got other Champions League days to come. We're going to be playing every half week regularly and at a higher standard than last season. So I think it's very much a wait and see. I think out of all the teams to get coverage of, Spurs, despite last season, not one I would go for. But they do have two very good fixtures coming up with Middlesbrough and Sunderland. I would definitely get on this third one. Romelu Lukaku, as well as Antonio. Lukaku shared the headlines with him from a fantasy perspective. He has been very, very frustrating, and on a personal level, I very nearly went Lukaku, but went Benteke instead, because he's in a good team, on good form with the fixtures, and he has the pedigree because he's now on 63 Premier League goals at 23 years old. In fact, he's got 121 goals in total at 23. I mean, he's joining a very elite class of footballer, so he's fantastic. But I think a lot of people are still bitter at his frustration. He was frustrating to own last season, especially towards the end. Everton had a double game week. So many people captained them because Everton had two fixtures in a week, very good games, and he blanked. I think a lot of people were let down and swore never to go Lukaku again. And he hadn't scored in 11 goals until his quick-fire hat-trick at the Stadium of Light. So it's sort of hard. Is he going to keep that up? I think he probably will with the fixtures Everton have, and he's guaranteed. He's number one striker. The question is, I mean, if he can get the penalties of Leighton Baines, then he's even more essential. But we think Baines is still on them. He did technically miss his last one, but it hit the post and went in off Shea Given's neck. So that's still an ongoing issue. But of course, Lukaku right now, if you want to strike and bring in Lukaku, is a very good option to go for. Team of the week now. Last week, my team got 37, which was barely better than the wildcard team. This week, I'm very much focusing on a few teams with a few fixtures in particular. So Arsenal, go to Hull. I'm going with Czech, and I'm going Cazorla because he is right now definitely going to play, and he's probably even a better option than Ozil and Sanchez. Never mind better value for money. Manchester City at home to Bournemouth, so of course you go with John Stones, cheapest route in their defence, and Iheanacho up front, who is cheap, he's brilliant, he's a more than adequate replacement for Aguero. And if you're looking for a short-term strategy that eventually gets Aguero back in next week, then Iheanacho is a sound way to do it. And Kevin De Bruyne in midfield. Mahrez is back after his performance in Bruges. Eriksen, that's purely because of the fixture and the fact that he's on set pieces and he's just brilliant, because Spurs are at home to Sunderland. And what else? Lukaku, yeah, I've already mentioned him. Everton have some good games. And we've got a couple of Crystal Palace players in there because they're at home to Stoke. I think Martin Kelly's guaranteed to play, especially now Papa Suarez